Hello, Siddharth. Namaste and welcome.
Namaste.
So good to have you here. For a change, we are meeting on Zoom instead of meeting in Fireflies. Though I prefer Fireflies always, but Zoom is what we have for now. So thank you, firstly, for joining me in for this conversation.
It's wonderful being here, Abhishek. Yeah.
Yes, from time to time, you have come to our programs and shared a few pointers, a few gems, and they've been so beautiful. And I'm so glad we're getting a focused conversation today. So Siddharth, I thought a good point to start, since the reason we connected was Fireflies Ashram, this beautiful place you have in Bangalore. And Fireflies, you call this the Earth Spirituality Ashram. And I was curious about this phrase, the Earth Spirituality. Like, is this a brand of spirituality, or what would you mean by Earth Spirituality?
Well, I think, unfortunately, today we have made the earth, even the words we use to denote the earth, we call it real estate or mineral or resource or a commodity like other commodities in the market to be bought and sold. And we have lost this sense of the sacred. I think if you ask, I live in a village, and if you ask any elderly man or woman in the village what the earth is, here in Kannada, they would refer to it as Bhumi Thai, Mother Earth. And, you can, as a modern, you can dismiss it as, okay, these are traditional people. For them, the earth, produces water, gives them water, gives them their daily bread. They grow their ragi and rice and sugarcane and all that. So without the earth, they can't survive. So that's why the earth is mother. I think that's a valid enough supposition also. But if you look at it from a modern scientific perspective, we have all evolved out of the earth. The Big Bang happened about 14.5 or so billion years ago. The earth came into being about 4.5 billion years ago. If you were to collapse 4.5 billion years of the Earth's life into, let's say, 1 year, for pedagogical reasons, 1 year of the Earth's life, then the single-celled organism emerged about 8 months down the line. It took a long time, about 800 million years, for the Earth to form a crust. Well, it was all gases earlier, helium and hydrogen. And then in this 1 year of the Earth's life, it's somewhere 8 months down the line that the single-celled organism emerged. And the human being emerged only 24 hours ago in this 1 year of the Earth's life. So we are all, the Earth is just not matter or some mineral. The Earth is our mother, even in a scientific sense. We emerged out of the Earth. And I think we need to keep this in mind, that there is a sacredness we give to our mother. And if we lose the sense of sacredness, if we rape our mother, if we desecrate our mother, we have to face the consequences. And just to continue on that notion of 1 year of the Earth's life, the human being emerged about 24 hours ago. And our great civilizations and religions are only half an hour old.
Wow.
So the human being is 23 and a half hours older than our religions, and civilizations.
Hmm.
So in a sense, we created our own gods. It's not that our gods created us. We created our own gods.
Hmm.
And the cultural context also defined the worldviews and the religions we shaped. This is not to say that this is not to deny the presence of the divine in the universe. I'm just saying historically, our cultural and religious forms are constructed. And obviously, they are touched by the presence of the divine. They are inspired by experiences of the divine, but nevertheless constructed and defined by, cultural constructs. So, for example, all religions were patriarchal always. And it's only now that they're beginning in the last 50 years or so to look into this and to look at women as equal. And that's another subject about how, while our humanity is common, if you look at our genes, 99.9% of our genes are the same all over the world. So everybody is, in a sense, a brother or a sister or at least a cousin, genetically. And yet, we have established caste and religion and race. We tend to have strong color prejudices in India. And yet, black-skinned people who are largely present in Africa, against whom there's a fair bit of racial prejudice. We forget that about a couple of 100,000 years ago or so, we all emerged out of Africa. So Africa is really where the human race emerged from and then spread all across the world. So this underlines our common humanity, that our common humanity is fundamental and goes beyond race and caste and religion and nationality. This is what should unite us. And in this globalized planet of ours, there should be a fundamental discourse and something that we imbibe in schools and universities, this notion of common humanity. And coming back to where we started, so the earth is our mother, not just in a metaphorical sense, but in an actual evolutionary sense. We evolved out of the earth. So we have to respect this sense of sacredness of the earth and not consider the earth as resource and mineral and real estate and a commodity. In some senses, even walking on the earth is a form of meditation.
Mm-hmm.
Each step that you take is a communion with your mother. And the mother's love and energy is given to you when you're conscious of it. So, this is the basis of our notion of earth spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
That there is an energy here, the energy of the mother, which we are not conscious of, which we deny, not only deny, as I said earlier, we humiliate our mother by poisoning her, by polluting her.
Mm-hmm.
And we are now facing the consequences of climate change.
Yeah. 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 So lovely notion you evoke with the word earth spirituality. I think it's quite a beautiful notion that you managed to evoke with earth spirituality. And you are also somebody who has spoken about reinventing religion or recontextualizing religion. And of course, not assuming religion and spirituality are the same. But just from the starting point of earth spirituality, I was wondering if we can segue into saying what then could be the role of religion in enabling earth spirituality, and in what ways maybe have to reimagine religion, or even peppier question would be, if Siddhartha would have to design a religion, would he design a new religion, revive old religions, mix them up? Like, what would you do vis-a-vis religion to recontextualize it? So just opening up that space.
Well, as I said, earth spirituality signifies, underlines our common humanity. And this is what religions will have to accept, that our common humanity is fundamental. And religions were born in specific historical and cultural contexts. And all religions were obviously culturally conditioned by these contexts. And this cultural conditioning also means that the idea of our common humanity doesn't always hold within religious contexts.
Yeah.
So, so religions can end up dividing people, as they do. Although they contain gems within them, they often end up dividing people. So what do you do with this? The fact that, to take a cliched example, the Taliban running riot in Afghanistan, applying the Sharia literally to women, for example, or to the notion of justice, whether it's cutting off arms or stoning women to death. I think somewhere, how do you deal with this? If somebody, a Taliban, says, this is all there in the scriptures, who are you to object to this? I think that the only way to deal with all this, with so much of the, I'm using a strong word, so much of garbage that goes along with religion, which undermines human dignity. The only way to deal with it is to look at what is the best in today's world as far as human dignity is concerned, as far as the rights of men and women are concerned, as far as the rights of minorities are concerned. And I think I can think of no better set of values than the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The Constitution of India, I think, was also influenced by such rights. And the Constitution of India also underlines, I think, values which every religion in India should take note of. So, the UN Declaration of Human Rights would be one document. But the Constitution of India is another document. These are spiritual documents. These are sacred documents. They're not just secular documents. And any religion which does not take these documents, I mean, in the case of India, all the religions in India, if they don't take the sacred Constitution of India seriously, I think there is a fundamental flaw in the way they see religion.
Lovely.
And if you look at the Taliban, there is a flagrant, gap between what they talk about and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Yeah.
What they are talking about is primitive. For a primitive age, at a period when notions of patriarchy and all were strong, they don't hold good today. And I think from the pulpits, every pope and mullah and Swamiji must declare that religion and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights go together. I don't see any other way out. Because otherwise, if somebody argues that this is in our scripture, and who are you to challenge it? You can only say, listen, this is the wisdom of the world. People from all over the world have come together and come to this understanding. And the United Nations is constituted by all the peoples of the world. This is a document of values and rights produced by the best thinkers in the world.
Looking at these two as also sacred documents, almost like, no, I wouldn't say a religion in itself, but valuing the sacredness of these documents as a balance to the tendency of religions to get divisive or even get wild and go out of control, I think is what I'm hearing you say, like balancing these would be the right way. Now, so Siddharth, in your journey, as I know,
another word, Abhishek. I think we need to be open to Gandhi when he says that, I shall build this house here firmly, but I shall keep the doors and windows open so that the winds of the world can flow through it. So we have to, whether we talk about Indic civilization or any other civilization which is marked by history and culture, we should keep our doors and windows open. Because even when we emphasize the pristineness and the purity of our tradition, or the uniqueness of our culture, or sometimes if you go overboard, you insist on the absoluteness of your religion or your culture. It's somewhat contradictory, because you have accepted so many things, whether it's technology, whether it's ideas from all over the world, and yet you insist on being absolute. So Gandhi's idea, I think Gandhi is very important to us. And I know that today we just take him for granted, or we don't take him seriously. We see him as outdated, which is really a mistake, because even when you look at climate change, if we had followed Gandhi, we wouldn't be in such an impasse.
True. Yeah, indeed. I think definitely somebody who's quite a gift to us. I was curious, Siddharth, about your own journey, as far as I know, has been on the left of the spectrum, and the left has traditionally not very actively embraced religion, and even, religion at least, if not spirituality, at least religion. and culture, and right has appropriated it, at least in India, in a great way to find its own roots. And what is, where are you now? Where are you ideologically now? What is your position now? What have you reached after this whole journey that you've taken? Where are you? What are the
In
lessons? What
my
are the, yeah.
early college days, I would say I flirted with Marxism. And I use the word flirted because I never got completely into it. Part of me was always uneasy with a certain kind of rational logic, which seemed to dismiss the inner life. And I was never really happy with that. And then later, I found Paulo Freire much more, it was the thinking of Freire was more creative when you were working with communities who were marginalized or oppressed. And I think the Marxists were not very happy with Freire at that point of time, because they felt that Freire was taking away potential adherents. In my journey, the major issue in the past was social injustice. And I think even if you're not a Marxist, it would be foolish to dismiss Marx's analysis of society, of class society. The alienation that it causes, the exploitation that it causes. Maybe the solutions that Marxists offer are not the right ones, like a forcible capture of power, or the Leninist notion of dictatorship of the proletariat, etc., or centralized leadership. I think today we believe in the values of democracy, although democracy has also been hijacked in a different way by the elites. But it's any day better than a group of people who claim to speak for everybody else. I think at this point of time, after I've been involved with social issues for 50 years or so, I find that social injustice continues to be very strongly present. If you look at the global figures of, the poverty and the people who are rich, a small number of people own about more than half the world's assets and wealth. And so many still continue to live in absolute poverty. And now the context of war in so many parts of the world has created conditions of, whether it's the Rohingyas or Syria or Yemen or Somalia or wherever, Ethiopia recently. The scenes that you see on television of poverty and devastation it's really terrible. So even a small percentage of this global wealth could alleviate suffering. And yet it's not happening. It's almost like it's systemic, that the system doesn't allow this. So that's a reality. Right now, maybe there is the richest man in the world is probably richer than 100 or 200 million people.
Easily, yeah.
So I'm not saying we need to have a society of perfect equality, I would say that even a 1 in 1,000 kind of a ratio would be acceptable compared to what we have today.
Wow. Yeah.
Because, between 1 in 200 million and 1 in 1,000, 1 in 1,000 is absolutely preferable.
Right.
Of course, today, in the past, we were not concerned about our ship sinking. There were people on the ship who were in the upper class and those in the cabins and the lower class, the dormitory kind of situations. But the ship was still afloat.
Yeah.
Today, we are faced with a situation where our ship is sinking, largely due to climate change. And so, in a sense, we need to have both short-term and long-term objectives. Sometimes there are people who just insist on alternatives. And these alternatives take time, long-term alternatives. Whatever they are, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in governance, whatever. In the short term, the ship might sink. So in a sense, everybody who wants to save the ship must come together and deal with this crisis. Whatever. Pump out the water, deal with the damage, the electricity, whatever. So I don't think that the small number of people who are concerned with alternatives or those who are concerned with altering the structure of society, I don't think they're going, if they're just in a rather rigid way, unable to see that the ship is sinking, they will not realize their objectives. So in the short term, we must save the ship while perhaps keeping one foot in the long-term objective of alternatives. By this, I mean that maybe we have to dialogue with the corporate sector. I mean, I had a Zoom discussion a few months ago, bringing together a very important mining company in Karnataka and and ITC, one of the directors of ITC. Both of them said things which I think for most people it was a revelation. The mining company was sensitive to women's rights, was sensitive to fair wages, was sensitive to environmental issues. And likewise, ITC, through its Chowpals, was trying to see that fair prices were given to farmers, that they had these networks of farmers growing trees for them for their paper industry. And they saw to it that these farmers got a good deal. So what they both were saying was that you can make your profits and still be fair to your workers and still be engaged with the environment. Now, I'm not sure whether, these two I'm talking about, whether they were a minority or whether more and more people in the corporate sector are doing this. But the fact that these two are doing it and still making profits shows that the global business can easily respond to the environment and easily respond to social justice issues.
If they choose to,
They choose to. So I think in a sense, this is the new challenge before us. Maybe we need to, I've been part of a group which has launched a global network, which has just been launched, called bridges for dialogues. So whether you dialogue with the corporate world, maybe even dialogue with people in Davos. We saw, I was part of the World Social Forum, for very closely involved. And we would, never dream of touching Davos or the World Economic Forum. But today, there are people in business also who realize that climate change will be the end of business. It's not just sections of the population who will disappear. But business interests will also suffer enormous damage.
Right.
So this opens out possibilities for this kind of dialogue.
Sure.
And maybe also, we need to bring dialogue with international bodies like the World Bank, the IMF, the UN, etc. Have forum.
Right.
Fora for this.
Sure. So dialogue between diverse people.
So this is something new, which I think people on the left, at least people like me, would have shunned a decade earlier.
Wow. Lovely. So rekindled hope in the power of dialogue is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
Lovely. So in this context, Siddharth, just wondering where you are, and since dialogue seems to be a pathway that you have, sort of one of the pathways that you're saying, at this stage, what are some questions you have and some intentions you have? If this is a pathway that you have discovered and now you're saying, what kind of questions are you holding right now? What's your inquiry like, and what intentions do you have as well? It'd be lovely to hear some of those.
Well, dialogue means that you don't have to agree with everything the other side holds for you to talk to that person. And you're hoping that this dialogue will lead to some form of compromise. That both sides will come to some middle ground. And this was, I think, for Gandhi, this was what he might call honorable compromise. That you may not get all your goals and objectives realized in that one go, but you've moved a little ahead. And you've established mutual relationship with people on the other side of the bridge. And you can always continue with this dialogue and move further on.
Yes. Definitely.
So while I agree with, there have to be a few people, for example, who critique the excesses of global capitalism, or critique the excesses of religious fundamentalism. There also has to be, we also need people who will not do this kind of radical critique. They might see the value of this radical critique and appreciate this radical critique, but they would be a little bit more circumspect so that they can dialogue with the other side. If you call the other side, completely inhuman or dogmatic or fundamentalist, etc., you can't have a discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, in the sphere of religion, whether they are Christian evangelicals who are disrespectful of other traditions, or Muslim fundamentalists or Hindu fundamentalists, maybe you can't talk to all of them, but there may be a section of them you can talk to.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Build relationships with.
Yes.
And you'll be surprised to find that maybe, many of them agree with at least half or 3/4 of the things you stand for.
Yes, definitely. Yes.
And you can't, lump all of them together.
Absolutely. Agree.
Everywhere you will find a few people who go to the extreme and who do things which are wrong. But that doesn't mean that you paint everybody with the same brush.
Sure. Agree. And yeah, sorry, you can go on. Then I wanted to share something.
So I think it's very important that some of us begin this dialogue with people whom we might think are Hindutva, or people we might think are Muslim, most closed Muslim thinkers or Christian thinkers, or I would even say Marxist thinkers. I think, for example, the Maoist extremists, while some of them may have justifiable reasons for what they are doing, that is certainly not the way to go about doing things.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
The people whom they are supposed to protect, they are the ones who face the worst consequences.
Right.
Increased militarization in policing and all that, and innocent people suffering.
Yeah.
So I think what Gandhi taught us, and I think what I think is something which we from India can be proud of, ahimsa. Non-violent action and non-violent communication. This is absolutely fundamental.
Right.
And at least some of us, I think there will always be a small group which makes a radical critique and uses strong language, and fair enough. Maybe they are right on some of these things. Many of us working with communities will have to refrain from that and take a more dialogical approach.
Yes.
The other side is not the enemy. I think that is something else we learned from Gandhi.
Yes.
The other side is not an enemy. We may confront the other side. We may, but it's all done non-violently and respectfully.
True. Yes, when I was also trying to talk of the idea of the center, it was really on the spectrum. The moderates actually form the center, while the extremists form the extreme edges. And in this centrism, non-violence not only essential, but also the way I'm seeing it is non-negotiable, or at least the way I'm
Absolutely.
saying. Because if you are not agreeing on non-violence, we don't even have a conversation going, because you will resort to violence when there is disagreement. And so how do we move forward? I think, and how do we build a consensus on non-violent dialogue at a increasing level between people? I think that's definitely one of the pursuits that I've been also on as in exploring Indic centrism as well. So that curious, just as we're about like 45 minutes into this, about 45 minutes in. So maybe we'll continue as a part 2 of this, but as a part 1 around this, I think one question that is coming to me is, what is your sense of this center? Is there something that you see of value? Is there something that you see which is worth cautioning? Where I place center not only as the place between left and right, but really also as the spiritual center that individuals have to find within themselves, even before they create a center or discover the center outside. And I'm curious about whether you see dialogue connected to the centrist idea. Do you see it? Yeah. So just curious about your thoughts on centrism, and if there is something that would be grounded in our culture in that.
Well, the center means a few things. One is your ability to listen to other views. It's one thing to debate, and it's another thing to arrive at a consensus. And listening is very important to arrive at consensus. The other thing I think I've learned from the Buddha is that the individual and collective self does not exist. By which, I think it was a provocative statement. I think the Buddha was basically trying to say that we are all constructed realities, constructed by the accident of our birth, the religion we grew up in, the caste we belong to, the race we belong to, the nation we belong to, the class we belong to, etc.
Yeah, yeah.
And therefore, this conditions us very powerfully. And this construct is constructed, it's not real.
Right. Yeah.
And you have not thought about it. So, in a sense, we need more and more people at the center deconstructing the individual and collective self.
Wow, lovely, lovely. Yeah.
And then discovering, what is this meaningful, valuable self that can create, can foster community, can foster justice,
yes,
can foster a deep relationship with the earth. So I would say this is fundamental. As long as you don't deconstruct individually and collectively,
you will not.
And you have to create the conditions for that.
Yes, conditions, safety to deconstruct, the ways, the language, the tools, the access, definitely.
Otherwise, you come with your own baggage, your intellectual baggage, your cultural baggage.
Yes. True.
And you see it all over the world, this cultural baggage, which cannot create a global community, not just a national community, but a global community.
Yeah.
Because today, whether we like it or not, we are a global community.
Yeah.
And our problems can be solved only as a global community.
Yeah.
Climate change, for example, cannot be solved at the level of one nation.
Yeah.
It can only be solved globally.
Yeah.
And maybe, if the human race survives, we have to move towards some form of global governance.
Yes.
Which can deal with the issues of climate, which can deal with issues of equity, which can deal with issues of gender.
Definitely. So that was nice, Siddharth, what you shared in terms of deconstructing self and both individual and collective selves as a way of discovering center. And what I'm hoping in our subsequent conversations, which might be dialogues between people who are thinking on similar lines, to uncover some recurring patterns and so on as well. So this, what we have just recorded, is an initial starter for people to listen in and get a sense of where you're coming from. And also use this as a way for people to get a flavor of what you're saying and then use it as a pad for dialogue. So thanks for these starter initial thoughts, Siddharth. Thank you so much for taking time. And I'm really looking forward to this now starting to move into a dialogue space.
Great.
As more and more people dialogue.
I think it's very important. And I think you're the right person to initiate this. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Siddharth.
Thanks, Abhishek.